here we go.
Hey up guys, so I just found out that Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight turned 10 years old this July. Besides making me feel really old, it got me thinking about how much this film has made an impact on me, as well as the superhero genre and the entire cinematic landscape. It's almost as if the Joker was foreshadowing the effects this film would have on the world when he first graced us with his appearance in the first trailer.
You've changed things. Forever.
That you did, Dark Knight. That you did. Anyway, I've been looking for an excuse to talk about this film for ages because The Dark Knight is one of my favourite films of all time. And I thought the 10-year anniversary is as good enough a reason as any to do a video. I do love to gush about films that I love, so here is why The Dark Knight is a modern masterpiece. The Dark Knight came out in 2008, and since then there has been a tidal wave of superhero films, many of which have gone on to be humongous successes, breaking box office records and taking audiences to fantastical worlds and places that we didn't know were possible. But one question that I get asked a lot as a film fanatic is, what is the best superhero film? Without hesitation, I will always answer The Dark Knight. Nothing has quite captivated me like Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight, and I'm sure many people will agree with me. If you don't, be sure to let me know what your favourite superhero film is in the comment section below. But the question is, why? What makes The Dark Knight so special? More compelling than Avengers Assemble, Black Panther, or Iron Man? Well, there isn't one simple answer, more a series of factors which come into discussion. In this video, I will aim to explain what those factors are and how they have elevated The Dark Knight, in my opinion, from its classification of a crowd-pleasing blockbuster to genuine masterpiece. The Dark Knight was released in 2008 as a sequel to Christopher Nolan's 2005 film Batman Begins, which itself was a revitalizing interpretation of The Caped Crusader compared to...
What killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age!
Oh my god. It follows the continuation of Batman / Bruce Wayne, played in this film by the growling Christian Bale.
Where are they?
There won't be any fireworks.
I'm not wearing hockey pads.
In his quest to make Gotham City a safer place through his symbolic vigilante persona known as Batman. In this film, Batman and the city of Gotham are thrown into a twisted game of violence, chaos, and morality at the hands of the Joker, played by Heath Ledger. Which brings me to the first factor of this film's mastery: an iconic antagonist. They say action movies are only as good as their villain, and Heath Ledger's interpretation of the killer clown has become something of legendary. The Joker is a fascinatingly complex antagonist because his motivations are never fully explained. His backstory is elusive and contradicts itself when he explains how he got his scars to multiple people throughout the film.
Why so serious?
Evidencing his sociopathic tendencies and never cementing any truth in his origins. And even though he cons the mob out of half of their money, he sets it all ablaze. He isn't motivated by money, power, revenge, or, as Alfred says, anything logical.
Some men just want to watch the world burn.
The Joker is a self-proclaimed agent of chaos and, as he says, does things to upset the established order and prove that even the best of men like Gotham's District Attorney, White Knight, Harvey Dent, who's played by Aaron Eckhart in this film, can be pushed to do evil things, to which he succeeds because he ends up getting Harvey Dent to start murdering the people that were involved in the death of his beloved Rachel Dawes. The Joker doesn't care for anything. He has no emotional connection to anything or anyone, which is what makes him so dangerous because he has nothing to lose. Even if he's killed at the hands of Batman, it just proves he's correct, because if Batman breaks his one rule of no killing, then he wins. And because the Joker is so unhinged, and endless credit needs to go to Heath Ledger's magnetic performance, we can't help but be captivated. Ledger tragically passed away shortly after shooting this film, but posthumously won an Oscar for his portrayal of the Joker at the 2009 Academy Awards. This was unprecedented because no comic book character portrayal had ever been nominated for an Oscar before, let alone win one. I know some people will argue that he only won this because of his untimely death, and I will agree to an extent there is some validity to that argument, but it's indisputable that he had earned it. Ledger's performance was the performance of the decade and will forever live in the zeitgeist. It's the fact that he died so shortly after playing such a creepy, traumatizing character that added a sense of intrigue to the public to know what this character did to him and did it in a sense contribute to his death. This is the second factor: a morbid sense of curiosity. Whether playing the Joker actually contributed towards his death is up for debate, but there's no denying that audiences were curious to see what he had crafted, and we were all blown away by it when we saw Heath Ledger's performance of the Joker. And the story only became more interesting when we learned that Heath Ledger had spent a month in a hotel room, isolating himself from others, trying to get into the mindset of this disturbing character. As tragic as his death was, it did give The Dark Knight a unique X factor which no other superhero movie can claim. A performance so consuming it may have actually killed him. And then when he went and won the Oscar for it, it solidified his status as a legendary performance, especially for breaking barriers by being the first Oscar-winning performance for a superhero role, okay? It broke new grounds and territories. But the success of The Dark Knight doesn't come down solely to an Oscar-winning performance. Side note, it also won for Best Sound Editing this film. But The Dark Knight as a film is one that shines across the board. Lighting, sound, performances, cinematography, score, stunt work, writing, and direction. It's a film of nuanced ideas about duality, the light and dark in our main characters, and the fine line that divides them. The Joker even points out the similarities between Batman and himself.
To them, you're just a freak. Like me.
But it's also about corruption and the morality of vigilantism, as well as the fine line between order and chaos. In short, Christopher Nolan didn't set out to make a brainless action film. Which brings me on to the third factor, and it's something I like to call interspectacle. Let me explain. Christopher Nolan has garnered a reputation as one of the most prominent and influential filmmakers of recent years. All 10 of his films, from Following to Dunkirk, have been critically well received, as well as his later entries being massive commercial successes. The Dark Knight alone made over $1 billion worldwide. So now he's one of the most bankable directors in the world. But what makes Nolan stand out as an auteur is his ability to please both cinephiles and mainstream audiences. His films are popcorn escapism, but he always presents you with ideas that get you thinking. But pleasing the masses and the critics don't always go hand in hand, but Nolan seemingly always manages to find the right balance of intellect and spectacle, or what I like to call interspectacle filmmaking, which Christopher Nolan is the king of. His work is accessible to mainstream audiences because he never gives the audience too much they can't handle. In The Dark Knight we get bat pods, an exploding hospital, and this iconic shot. Fanboy treats, or the spectacle side of the amalgam. But we also get high-stakes drama, like the interrogation scene, which feels like a superhero homage to the thrilling diner scene from Michael Mann's classic Heat, as well as the suspenseful social experiment on board the two freighters, where the Joker gives each boat the detonator to a bomb on the other freighter. It's a heart-pounding, morally grey dilemma, which is essentially the battle for Gotham's soul. It's intellectual, or makes the audience feel rewarded because they're internally debating what would they do in this situation. That's riveting filmmaking. And because Nolan doesn't compromise on story or character development, all the exciting and often practical stunt work and action set pieces just feel like delightful bonuses, but they're never a hindrance to the story. They only add to the film's themes of chaos and panic. I mentioned previously that Nolan's films feel accessible, and what separates The Dark Knight from the collective genre of other superhero films is that it's not exclusively a superhero film. I mean, primarily it is a superhero film, but it's also a blend of many other genres, okay? It's a thriller, it's an action film, it's a crime film as well. It's more accessible to a larger audience because it's not exclusively just for comic book lovers. This brings me on to my fourth factor, and that is that The Dark Knight is grounded in realism. Now, hear me out. I know what you're thinking. How could a film about a man who dresses up like a bat be possibly considered realistic? Well, granted, it is a little bit of a stretch, but The Dark Knight is actually a film that reflects our society in a post-9/11 world. It's fiction, but fundamentally it shows us how our society reacts and behaves in a violent world where it feels like we're exposed to constant threats of terror. Just look at Paris, London, Manchester, Oslo, Orlando, Las Vegas, just to name a few. Yes, this is a superhero film, but there are no radioactive spiders or magic hammers or skybeam portals. It doesn't feel out of the realms of believability because the threat in this film is humanity and how we all have the capacity to commit heinous crimes. The Joker knows this.
I'll show you. When the chips are down, these civilized people, they'll eat each other.
And he's correct. When society panics, our moral compass doesn't guide us the way it should, because morality is just an illusion that we manufacture to distance ourselves from the evil that we see in the world. And what's wonderful is that Nolan never presents us with one clear solution or answer for the war on terror, because nobody really knows what the right thing to do with the war on terror is. We see that in the scene with the sonar machine with Lucius and Batman when they're trying to track down the Joker. That by hacking people's phones, it's a way of counteracting terrorism, but it's hideously unethical and a violation of privacy. But is it justified? We as an audience can decide for ourselves. No one doesn't give us any clear solution or correct answer. And because we can see The Dark Knight as an allegory to real-world issues, it makes it feel more real. This leads me into my fifth factor to its success: its influence. Since The Dark Knight, we've seen more superhero films deviate from the fantasy and follow in The Dark Knight's trailblazing footsteps of interweaving social and political elements into the narratives, such as Captain America: Winter Soldier being a commentary on national security, or Black Panther being a commentary on oppressed black communities. When you give the audience applicable context to their own existence, it makes it more than just mere escapism. It's a reflection. The Dark Knight proved that superhero films can be more than just money-guzzling commodities. They can be a canvas for art. The fact that this film won 2 Oscars, yet still caused an uproar that the Academy didn't include it as part of its 5 Best Picture nominees for that year, says something. This actually forced the Academy to reevaluate how many films could be nominated for Best Picture. The following year, they increased the number of slots from 5 to upwards of 10. This evidences the effect of this film because it legitimized the genre as a serious display of artistic merit for the medium. At the time, The Dark Knight didn't fit the traditional norms of the Academy's inclusion of Best Picture nominees, but it forced the Academy to listen and eventually change their view on what counts as a Best Picture contender. That's influence. And I guess the Joker was right again.
You've changed things. Forever.
The Dark Knight has actually paved the way for more superhero films to be taken more seriously. This year we saw Logan up for Best Adapted Screenplay at the Oscars, and although it's a long shot, there is a chance that Black Panther could get a nomination for Best Picture at next year's Oscars too. It's wishful thinking, but you never know. And The Dark Knight's influence can now be seen in the upcoming filmmakers of the industry. You only have to watch the Safdie brothers' Good Times opening scene to see how it parallels the bank heist scene from The Dark Knight at the beginning of that film. That's also influence. And because of The Dark Knight's earth-shattering success, this had a massive effect on Warner Brothers and their entire approach to the DCEU films, employing a darker, grittier, more Nolan style of approach, trying to emulate the same results. Sadly, they employed Zack Snyder to do these films, and yes, they didn't have, well, let's just say Zack Snyder didn't possess the intellect or finesse of Nolan, and yeah, the results just felt like they were poor imitations of Nolan's far superior franchise. Alright guys, so time to summarize. So why is The Dark Knight a modern masterpiece then? 10 years have passed since its cinematic release, and The Dark Knight has aged well because thematically it's still as relevant now as it was upon release. In an age of uncertainty, unreliability, and panic in our governments, as well as feeling like we're living in a constant state of pending terror, The Dark Knight completely reflects and explores these themes. There's a longevity to its content, as well as being grounded in realism. The story may be about a vigilante and a terrorist who both have a knack for theatricality, but never does the premise feel far-fetched. It's simply an inventive storytelling method that demonstrates real-world issues, but also has cracking entertainment value. The Dark Knight was a blockbuster behemoth, but Nolan's films are so damn enjoyable because he never sacrifices character development or story over spectacle. He always manages to find the right balance of intellect and spectacle into spectacle. And whilst I could debate which of his films is his most acclaimed or his pièce de résistance, that's a topic for another video, The Dark Knight has earned its classification of masterpiece because of seemingly being so many things at once. It's a superior sequel, it's rewatchable, it's very quotable.
And I thought my jokes were bad. Little fight in you. I like that.
Then you're gonna love me.
Why so serious? Let's put a smile on that face.
It's influential.
Why so serious?
Why wanna know how I got these scars? It changed the public's and the Academy's perceptions of superhero films because it broke superhero conventions, ultimately redefining what a superhero film could be. It gave us a powerful, career-defining performance from Heath Ledger, a star who was just on the rise. This was the tragic X Factor, as well as giving us a villain for the ages.
See, madness, as you know, is like gravity. All it takes is a little push.
And this film continues to be discussed, debated, satirized, referenced, and analyzed in pop culture. In short, it's left its mark on the world. All these factors that I've mentioned throughout this video combined together create something that's like lightning in a bottle. It can't be fully explained or replicated, okay? It's something completely unique and something that should be celebrated as an achievement in the world of cinema. And if that ain't a masterpiece, then I don't know what is. Thanks so much for watching, guys. If you're as big of a fan of The Dark Knight as me, be sure to let me know what you think of it in the comment section below. What do you think makes this film a masterpiece? What makes it special? Is there a factor that I missed out that you think that's worth discussing? Whatever you think, be sure to let me know in the comment section below. I'd love to hear what you guys think. And if you guys did like this video and you would like to help me out, please do give it a like or share it with a friend who you think might appreciate it. Honestly, little things like that, they do go a long way and I really do value that. And yeah, if you guys do like my content in general that's on my channel, if you could do me a lovely favor and hit that subscribe button for me, but only if you want to, okay? Thanks so much for watching, guys. For more things related to movies, TV, and popcorn culture, I'm Nick Hearfield, and I'll see you next time.